Over these last 5 or 6 years, there's been a major uptick in isolation and loneliness. And it's not just with young people, but this is people of all ages. You see, there are many reasons why this is. Obviously, the main culprit being the fact that we have entertainment right at our disposal 24/7. You can go on your phone to play games, you can text other people, you can watch videos, go on streaming services to watch TVs or movies, etc., etc. We have all this entertainment right at our fingertips to the point where we feel more inclined to stay inside and less inclined to get outside and actually socialize with people. But it runs even deeper than this. The fact that we have access to this technology is only the first layer of the problem. There's another layer beneath that acts as like an extension of that first problem, and that to me is algorithms. You see, everybody has an algorithm when they go online. You could take two people, person A and person B. These people can have 25 similarities between the two of them, but their online worlds, based on the things they do when they're on the internet, are very different. Now, on one hand, this is great because you can say, all right, well, everybody gets to explore their interests and explore the things that are fascinating to them and learn new skills and have this curated online experience that's unique to them. Okay, I get that. And while I'm grateful for that, and while I do think there's a lot of upside to that, for the sake of this video, I'm taking the opposite stance. I'm saying that fact of having algorithms for everybody who goes online has actually created more isolation and more loneliness and more, essentially, division amongst people worldwide. In past times, and when I say in past times, I'm saying like 30 years ago, everybody had the same sort of media. There was the local news, the local radio stations, the same sort of music, and maybe select people, depending on where you lived within the country, had countrywide news. But that was it. They had newspapers, radio, local news, sometimes countrywide news. That's all they had. So more people than not got the same information, and they could develop and formulate different perspectives and opinions on whatever was happening around the world based on the information they were given. But that was at least something that they could all relate to. Nowadays, it's very different. Nearly everybody is plugged into this online world, and we're always consuming more and more information, which is something I've talked about ad nauseum in plenty of other videos. And the thing is, the online world is supposed to keep us more connected. It's supposed to bring us together globally. But because of algorithms, more of us are spending time online, but we're seeing less of the same information. The things you see online is very different from what I see online, and what that guy sees online, and what that guy sees online. All very different. And this creates even more division. And I'm not just saying division because people's perspectives are more likely to be diversified. That's not exactly the biggest of issues here. The bigger issues is that there's more division amongst people directly around you. So, for example, a family of, we'll say, 5 people 30 years ago, they would by and large have similar values, similar beliefs, similar religious and political takes versus what it is now. Because the accessibility to information was not as high back then as what it is now. So now you have 4, 5, 6 people living in the same house, but they can't connect on really anything. Much of what they see that makes up their world is coming from online. And that online space is different from even the other people that they live with. So when you can't even relate to the people who are physically around you because your information consumption is just so different from theirs, then conversations go stale. From there, relationships begin to wither away. And you just don't connect with people like you once did. Along with this, people get trapped in their own reality tunnels where they think that the information they see online is all there is. And they think that all the stuff that they're seeing is correct, and anybody else who believes in something else because they're seeing something else, even though they're not consciously aware of that, they think that everybody else is wrong. And this is where the bigger division comes into play, because not only are we having a hard time communicating with others because the information we're consuming is different, but now we're more polarized. And when we're more polarized, we get emotionally attached to the things we believe in, and we shut out the opinions of other people, even though the opinions of other people might be exactly what you need. People are essentially all in on a certain set of beliefs or values or opinions about a given topic, and they completely shut out the ideas of other people. That is, that is a major issue, because you're essentially closing off your mind to other ideas that might actually develop your perspective even more. But we as people, we love it when our ideas are validated. We love when what we believe to be true is proven to be true in some way, shape, or form. And if all the information you're seeing online through your algorithm is meant to back up whatever you already believe to be true, then you'll always think you're in the right, even though there's a good chance you're not in the right, because there's somebody else who has a different algorithm, somebody else who's seeing different content or seeing things from a different perspective about that given topic. And this is where things get really murky. So at this point, you're probably thinking, yeah, I get that, but what can we do about it as individuals? There are many obvious but kind of stupid solutions, like, oh, stop going on social media, or, oh, stop doing this, stop doing that. But it's really not feasible in today's day and age, all right? This is a part of our life. So to step away from it completely is kind of foolish. I think it'd set you back even further. However, there are a few things that I do think we can all do. So firstly, it's coming to terms with the fact that whatever content you're seeing online, whatever inputs you have within your minds, will significantly influence the way you see the world. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every video you watch, every headline you read, anything you get emotional about, that will influence your interface with reality. So this is why it's so important to, especially when you're online, curate your world. Be very strict with what you allow into your mind, because everything you see, all sort of sensory input you experience, that will influence your life, all right? So be mindful of that. And the second thing you got to really consider, you got to question the motives that are underlying all of these messages that you're taking in, all right? Most of the things you see online aren't for your benefit. They're meant to get you emotional and reactive and viewing things in a negative light for either your money or just for your energy or your attention or whatever that underlying motive may be. But you really got to consider, okay, well, is this news source or is this content creator or is this friend I went to high school with posting about stuff to improve my life or improve the lives of other people? Or are they posting stuff to essentially drain my energy or drain my pockets, all right? Be very mindful of that. If the content doesn't support you or humanity as a whole, then it's not worth consuming, all right? And I know that seems stupidly simple. It seems glaringly obvious. I get it, but when it comes to real world application, few people actually consider that. They're so willingly plugged into the matrix, for lack of a better term, the matrix of the news, that is. They're so plugged into it that they would rather just mindlessly take hits of that virtual crack pipe than actually step back from the noise and evaluate what they're actually doing with their time and attention. And to me, the most terrifying part about this online social media junkie situation is that the majority of people have no clue to what extent their thoughts and beliefs and actions that they take every single day are influenced by the things that they see. And to me, that's terrifying. As somebody who loves people and loves humanity and wants people to, of course, act on their own accord, but somebody who wants people to think clearly and go about their life in a purposeful manner, it's very difficult for me to see every day, even amongst the people who are in my physical world. And this brings me to the third point, the third thing you could consider moving forward, especially amongst this loneliness epidemic that we're all facing. Ruthlessly replace the things that are stealing your attention and energy, all right? So that mindless content consumption that is essentially validating all your beliefs, you can replace that with a conversation with somebody who has the opposite belief about a given topic. You can replace that with a book. You can replace that with literally anything, all right? Because there's a good chance that your thoughts and opinions and ideals about given topics aren't the only right answer. There's always a different perspective. There's always somebody else with another view on whatever that topic is who can actually add to your perspective. And rather than endlessly consuming things that'll just continue to validate the things you believe in, You got to get out there, socialize with other people, and actually see where they're coming from. Look, I know it's difficult. I get it. I've been down that path. I've fallen into the trap of just consuming and consuming and consuming more and more content because brain rot is everywhere. I'd argue there's actually more brain rot content on the internet than valuable content. But that's besides the point. What I'm getting at here is that you got to figure out the things that you're genuinely interested in, and you got to poke holes in the ideals and the opinions that you have and try to see them from another light. Once you can do that, once you can come to terms with the fact that, yeah, there are things you can be learning about and there are things that you can be developing your perspective on, then you feel more inclined to talk with other people. From there, well, life just gets so much better because we are social creatures. We're not meant to isolate. We're not meant to essentially live in our own echo chambers, all right? We're meant to be explorers and adventurers and thinkers and build stuff. And it's impossible to do that when you're sitting home alone in your room and just scrolling, all right? So, yeah, that's the main thing with this loneliness and isolation epidemic. You gotta become aware of the forces that are at play. You gotta become aware of the things that have the most influence over your life, then actively do things to replace what you're doing now with something better, all right? So, hope that makes sense. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. I'll speak to you soon.